Before we get into today's episode, I have an extra fun announcement. On October 8th, we are having an UnDiet Cookbook celebration party. We are marking the 10th anniversary of the release of the little book that went on to become a #1 bestseller, won gold at the Taste Canada Awards, and ultimately was the textbook for the Culinary Nutrition Expert Program. To mark this momentous occasion, I am offering an absolutely free live online culinary nutrition cooking demo, or how I used to call it, a cooking party. You want to be there. All you have to do is subscribe to my Substack or get your name on a list, any list. You can fill out any of the opt-in forms at fun.megantelpner.com, and you will receive the formal login details to join this live online, totally free culinary nutrition extravaganza. It will be live only, so mark your calendar, October 8th, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You want to be there. I'm going to be cooking up a couple of the recipes from the UnDiet Cookbook. We'll be connecting as a community, old school styles. I cannot wait to see you there. Oh, I'm also going to be offering for a 3-day limited time the absolute best offer we've ever had on the Culinary One Pass. This is your one-stop shop to access all of the courses I created for the Academy of Culinary Nutrition over the last 10 years. So your next step is to go to fun.megantelpner.com, opt in anywhere on the website, or subscribe to my Substack, and you will get the information to join. Invite all your friends. We got room for 500. I hope someone shows up. I really am excited to put on the old hat or the vintage dress, as the case may be, and do a little song and dance for vibrant health, vibrant living, courageous pivoting, living from the heart, and doing that with you there. All right, let's get on with today's episode. Welcome back to The Courageous Pivot, the podcast where we explore bold, heart-led changes in work, life, and everything in between. I'm your host, Megan Telpner, and if you're new here, in a moment, I will share a brief introduction. First, I want to ask an extra special request that you subscribe on my Substack. I'm just rolling out some extra bonus episodes. I'm calling them Living True updates, and they're unscripted updates of what's been happening in my own life as I'm navigating my way through this liminal phase, the messy middle of any great change. And I am getting more and more clarity as I go, and no doubt have been heavily influenced by being fully immersed in all these concepts around Courageous Pivot and the conversations that I've been having with such a diverse group of incredibly wise, inspiring people. So please be sure to subscribe on Substack to access those extra in-between bonus episodes. Now the intro. I'm someone who has lived through multiple pivots of my own. Some were more courageous than others. I spent 15 years building a successful business in the wellness space, only to step away for no other reason that it just felt like it was time to move on. I'm fascinated by those moments when we know something needs to change, even when everything looks perfect from the outside, and I become quite passionate about exploring what it really takes to follow your truth, your heart, your soul, the essence of who you are now, especially when that path forward isn't clear. And today, we're diving into something that might be the most fundamental barrier to making courageous pivots. This is the fear of being truly seen. If you've been following along on this journey with me, you know we've explored the whispers that call us to change, the courage to sit in the unknown, and the sacred art of simply letting go. Today, we're going even deeper to the core fear that keeps so many of us playing small, wearing masks, and avoiding the very pivots our hearts are calling us toward. Now, this episode has been percolating probably before the entire podcast even came into my mind. This episode was inspired by a card that has been sitting on my desk for nearly 3 years. Think of those cards you get in like a spiritual card deck. I was at a mastermind retreat in late 2022 with a group I'd been working with, a brain trust, for, 3 or 4 years by that point. I was definitely the most woo-woo and the most out there. But we hired someone to guide us through a breathwork class as part of this urban retreat we were having. And afterwards, in a circle, we all drew cards. My fellow masterminders were sort of, being patient about it, let's say, humoring it. So no one paid much mind to their cards. We kind of read them out and moved on. But I drew a card and the message stopped me cold. And it said, "Are you afraid to be seen?" And my immediate reaction was almost indignant, and I rolled my eyes. Like, are you kidding me? I'm seen too much. That's exactly what my issue is right now. My photo is on every marketing material. There's literally ads running where I'm tap dancing on Instagram. I've been on video for more than a decade. I've written books with my name and face on them. I need to be seen less. Of course, that wasn't the point at all. Being visible and being truly seen are two entirely different things. I'll read to you what that card actually said, because the universe clearly had a message for me and maybe for you too, and it took me until now to understand it entirely. The front of the card says, "Are you afraid to be seen?" And the small type on the other side says, "This world doesn't want you to hold back any longer. Time to shine your unique light on the world. You were made from love, and from love you are whole. There is no more hiding. There is no more shame. There is only truth. Live naked and free." The naked bit is a bit much, but you get the point. Underneath that, there was something called the soul action, or today's soul action. And what it suggested was equally confronting. It read, "What parts of me am I hiding, even from myself, so I can just keep carrying on as I have done? Am I being authentic? Do I allow myself to be all of me? What do I need to feel so I can be safe to be seen?" Being visible and daring to be seen are very different. I was okay being visible, but there was a lot I was hiding, not just from the outside world, but I think also from myself. And then the question comes up, what are we keeping ourselves safe from? The universal truth is that when we are in our most whole and honest state, we are also in our most lovable form. Yet these are often the parts we are quickest to hide, or most shy to let others experience. Of course, this comes from fear of rejection and judgment, wanting to remain safe from the possibility that if people saw who we really are, they might not like what they found. Better to present as who we are expected to be, right? But at what cost? Here's what I've come to understand. We all wear masks. Not the literal kind, please, let's be done with that forever, but the psychological armor that we put on every morning to help us navigate a world that can feel like too much for our full expression of our authentic, vulnerable selves. Maybe your mask is the, quote, successful entrepreneur who never admits to struggling or feeling lost. Maybe it's the perfect mother who can't let anyone see that sometimes you're barely keeping it together. Maybe it's the helpful friend who says yes to everything because saying no might reveal that you have needs too. Or maybe it's the rational, logical person who dismisses their intuition and heart-centered knowing because it might seem too woo-woo or emotional or illogical. These masks aren't malicious. They developed for good reasons. They helped us survive, belong, and succeed in systems that seemingly rewarded certain qualities while punishing others. Michael Beckwith, the spiritual teacher and founder of Agape International Spiritual Center, speaks powerfully about this phenomenon. He talks about how we often live from what he calls false identities, the roles and personas we've constructed to feel safe and accepted in the world. But these identities, while serving us for a time, can become prisons that keep us from expressing our authentic nature. It could be that we were never truly ourselves, or that we outgrew that expression of ourselves. Ultimately, though, we keep trying to stick with the same old to avoid the change. Beckwith teaches that true personal evolution requires us to shed these false identities and step into the authentic self, the self that exists beyond our conditioning, beyond our need for approval, and beyond our fear of rejection. But here's the problem. When we are constantly managing our image, curating our presentation, and hiding parts of ourselves, we're not available for the very connections and opportunities that could transform our lives. Probably the things we're actually craving the most. And most importantly, for our purposes here, when we're afraid to be seen, we can't make truly courageous pivots to align with the life we're meant to be living, with our full potential and with what is fully possible, joyful, easeful, and powerful beyond measure. Think about it. Every courageous pivot requires you to admit that what you've been doing isn't working anymore. It asks you to acknowledge that you've changed and grown beyond your current circumstances. You have to show vulnerability by not having all the answers. You risk judgment from people who preferred your old version, or more often, don't want the mirror held up to the shifts in their own heart they're suppressing. And you have to stand in your truth even when it's uncomfortable for others. All of this requires being seen, not just the polished, put-together version of you, but the real you. The you that's questioning, evolving, uncertain about the next step, but certain about what's no longer working. When I was contemplating scaling down my business, one of my biggest fears wasn't actually about money or logistics. It was about who would I be without all that, without the reputation and identity I had taken great pride in building. Would I still be relevant, or did that relevance even matter anymore? What did that relevance ever mean? Mostly, I knew it was going to take time to figure out who I was now and what I wanted now, how I wanted my days, weeks, and months to look when I no longer had my lengthy to-do list every day. I was afraid to be seen, it seems, even by me. Here's what I've learned about the cost of hiding who we really are. First, it's energetically depleting. Maintaining masks is exhausting. When you're constantly monitoring what you say, how you act, and what you reveal, you're using enormous amounts of energy that could be channeled into creating the life you actually want. Greg Braden, who has spent decades bridging science and spirituality, speaks about this from a quantum perspective. He talks about how our authentic self operates at a different energetic frequency than our masked self. When we're constantly trying to be someone we're not, we're literally working against our own energetic nature, which creates stress, fatigue, and disconnection from our true power. Lying in any capacity will diminish your true power, even if that's lying to yourself about who you are and what you're meant to be doing now. Being in this power, being in alignment in this way creates a magical magnetism that draws people, opportunities, and knowings to you. It's hard to describe until you experience it. Braden's research into heart-brain coherence, much of it available in partnership with the HeartMath Institute and through his many, many books, shows us that when we're living authentically, when our thoughts, emotions, and actions are aligned with our true nature, we actually function more efficiently physiologically. Our heart rhythm becomes coherent. Our immune system strengthens, and our capacity for insight and creativity expands. As a side note, I have a free class available to you all about this. I explain how this works from a physiological perspective and guide you through the practice. Totally free. You can grab the link over on my Substack in the show notes. Some people have commented to me that I appear to be aging in reverse. I believe what it actually is a shift in energetic states, an energetic change that has physiological benefit along with emotional and spiritual gains. It's happiness from the source. When we're hiding behind masks, we disrupt this natural coherence. We create internal conflict that shows up as everything from chronic stress to creative blocks to relationship problems to physical health conditions. It also creates more shallow connections. When people love your mask, they don't actually love you. This has the capacity to leave you feeling lonely even when you're surrounded by people because the relationships are built on a false foundation. You miss opportunities too. The very authenticity you're hiding might be exactly what someone else needs to see. Your struggles might help someone else feel less alone, and your unconventional path might inspire someone else's courage. As I've said before, you become a living permission slip to live authentically. And there's also the internal disconnection that happens. When you hide parts of yourself from others, you're also often hiding them from yourself. You lose touch with your own desires, instincts, and that inner knowing. And perhaps most importantly, it stunts your growth. Growth requires vulnerability. When we're committed to appearing like we have it all together, we cut ourselves off from the feedback, support, and challenges that help us evolve. This isn't about the constant validation loop that social media has conditioned us to, but about what is so real that there's actually no way to put it on display for others' acceptance. It's just being exactly as you are. For many of us, this fear of being seen has been conditioned since childhood, finding ways to live up to others' expectations. Don't be too loud, don't be too emotional, don't be too much, don't be so sensitive, be grateful for what you have, don't rock the boat, what will other people think? It is very easy for these soundtracks to play on repeat our whole lives unless we actively pause to question what is real and true now. Michael Beckwith often talks about how we move from what he calls victim consciousness to creator consciousness. In victim consciousness, we believe that our worth and safety depend on external validation. We shape-shift to meet others' expectations because we believe our survival depends on it. But in creator consciousness, we recognize that our worth is inherent. We understand that trying to be someone we're not is actually the source of our suffering, not the solution to it. And then we carry these beliefs into our adult lives, our careers, and our relationships. We learn to read the room and adjust accordingly, and we become masters of fitting in. But fitting in and a true sense of belonging are two different things. Jack Kornfield, the renowned meditation teacher, speaks to this beautifully when he says, "We spend so much energy trying to be who we think others want us to be, but true freedom comes when we have the courage to be authentically ourselves. Compassion begins with accepting our own hearts exactly as they are." So, what does it mean to be truly seen? It means emotional honesty, sharing how you actually feel, not just what's socially acceptable to feel. Saying, "I'm struggling with this decision," instead of, "Everything's great." It means admitting uncertainty, being willing to say, "I don't know," or "I'm figuring it out as I go," instead of pretending you have a master plan. It might also be about sharing your evolution, letting people in your life know when you've changed your mind, grown beyond old beliefs, or discovered new aspects of yourself. You don't need to tell them about every time you change your mind, but if it's big and it feels important and it means that you can be more yourself in their presence, then it's probably worth it. It means speaking your truth, expressing opinions, values, and perspectives that might not be popular, but are authentic to who you are. Being truly seen means showing your process, not just the polished outcome. It might mean revealing a little bit of that messy middle, the struggles behind the success. It might mean asking for help when you need it instead of maintaining the illusion of complete self-sufficiency all the time. And ultimately, it's about setting boundaries, saying no when no is your truth, even if it might disappoint others. And it's about owning your desires, acknowledging what you want, even if it seems selfish, impractical, or different from what others expect. A quick note on this selfishness, which often comes up in motherhood. I don't believe that being of disservice to yourself is serving your family in the highest way possible. When we can find joy in the things that nourish us and bring us that sense of fulfillment, I don't see that as selfish at all. I think that is actually where we need to be to best serve those we love most in our lives. The work of the HeartMath Institute and people like Joe Dispenza, Gray Braden, and Dawson Church, to name just a few, help us understand that being authentic isn't just a nice idea, it's actually how we're designed to function optimally. The current research into heart-brain connection shows us that when we're living in alignment with our authentic nature, our heart sends coherence signals to our brain that enhances our cognitive function, emotional regulation, and overall well-being. Emotional regulation, by the way, is a key metric for longevity. When we're constantly trying to be someone we're not, we create what is referred to as an incoherent state, where our heart and brain are out of sync, leading to stress, confusion, and diminished capacity for clear thinking and feeling. Again, I go into this in way more detail in that free training. You can access it in the show notes on my Substack. Ultimately, what this means is that the masks we wear aren't just emotionally costly, they're literally making us less intelligent, less intuitive, and less capable of creating the lives we want. They can also be a source of physical illness, as I mentioned. Here's something I want to say directly to you. You, my dear friend, have permission to be seen. You have permission to be complex, contradictory, and always evolving. You have permission to outgrow old versions of yourself. You have permissions to want different things now than you wanted 5 years ago. You have permission to let go of whatever it is you're trying so hard to hang on to. You have permission to be uncertain about your next steps while being certain about what's no longer working. You have permission to disappoint people who preferred your old version. You have permission to be loved for who you actually are, not who you think you should be. By now, you've met and listened to so many guests on the show talk about going through this. They have shared that it is not easy, but the blessings on the other side are well worth it. My episode with the ICU doctor, Kwadwo Kiraman-Tang, where he said that learning to live with this courage, to follow his heart and be true to himself, gave him a sense of freedom he'd never known before. This isn't about imposing your will on life, but about getting out of the way of who you really are and letting that truth shine through. So, how does this connect with your courageous pivot? If you're feeling called to make a change, whether it's in your career, your relationship, your location, or your lifestyle, I want you to ask yourself some questions, which I will also share in the show notes on Substack if you want to come back to use these as a journal prompt. What are you afraid people will see if you make this change? What version of yourself are you protecting by staying where you are? What would become possible if you stopped managing other people's perceptions of you? Who might you become if you weren't afraid of judgment? What would you choose if you knew you'd be loved and accepted regardless? When you stop managing perceptions and start being honest about who you are now and your own evolution, something quite magical happens. The relationships that matter will deepen, while old ones fall away, and yes, sometimes painfully. New opportunities emerge, and most importantly, you reconnect with parts of yourself you'd forgotten existed. Here is a practice for you today. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to offer you the same practice that card suggested to me. Take some time this week to journal on these questions. What parts of me do I hide so I can be socially accepted and fit in? Am I being authentic in my most important relationships? Do I allow myself to be all of me, or do I edit myself based on the audience? And what do I need to feel so I can be safe to be seen? Be gentle with yourself as you explore these questions. The point isn't to judge yourself for having masks, but to become aware of them so you can move beyond them more and more. This all could easily feel and sound incredibly self-indulgent. But here is the truth of truths. We are in a consciousness revolution. You maybe never have thought of this before and don't know why you've landed yourself here, but trust that you're in the right place for a specific reason. So let this be your invitation. Your courageous pivot might not be about changing your entire life. It might simply be about showing up more authentically in the life you already have. It might be about having the honest conversation you've been avoiding. It might be about sharing something real instead of something perfect. It might be about asking for what you need instead of pretending you don't need anything. And it might be about admitting you've changed and giving yourself permission to want different things. The world doesn't need another perfectly curated version of success. More than ever, the world needs your truth, your questions, your evolution, your humanity, and your magic. And that comes through more and more as you become more aligned with who you truly are. It becomes effortless to be you. As that card so beautifully said, you are made from love, and from love you are whole. There is no more hiding. There is no more shame. There is only truth. Your willingness to be seen, like really seen, gives everyone around you permission to do the same, and that's how we create the more authentic, connected world that we're all craving. I want to thank you as always for being with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you shared it with someone or posted a comment or even just a heart on Substack. Again, I want to ask you to please subscribe on Substack as I begin sharing some in-between posts and even some episodes that are only available to Substack subscribers, currently totally free. And remember, the most courageous pivot you can make is the decision to be authentically, unapologetically, beautifully yourself. Until next time, keep listening to your heart, trust your evolution, and know that the world needs exactly who you are, not who you think you should be. I'll see you next time on The Courageous Pivot. Have a beautiful rest of your day.